Big events. What are we making today?
Roast of chilies.
I'm stuffing bison inside of it.
Ooh.
It needs a starch because that holds together. I use quinoa. The native people always tell you, like, don't cook it when you're angry, you know, or you'll make the food bitter.
Native people a long time ago devised this method of charring chilies because when you char a chili, you bring the oil out. So the oil is the medicine and the oil is the flavor.
I'm just filling my little boat with goodies. 1, 2, 3. What are we making?
Stuffed trout.
So this is sage from the garden. This is probably the first ancestral oven. We're going to roll it in corn husk, which I call the Native American aluminum foil.
You're mummifying this.
And then we're going to wrap it in clay. Okay. Once it's in clay...
No, you ripped it.
It would have been put into the fire, but the clay protects it, steaming it. Beautiful. Beautiful.
And then the guests arrived, and Lois gave them an important history refresher.
It's always about who's telling the story. So if native people got on boats and went to Europe, Europe would be the new world.
And then we ate.
How's the food?
I think Derek has a good reaction.
How was it?
It was amazing. There was so much complexity and depth to all the flavors. Everything that was on this table tonight blew my mind. Oh, and I almost forgot.
Does anyone want to experience the cracking? Isn't that amazing? And really what we've done is we've created an ancient oven. It smells amazing. It does smell amazing.
I think I made that one.
So in some instances you're going to have to be a little more aggressive. So you can actually see the herbs right inside. Corn is a pretty amazing plant. We can use the husk, we can use the cobs, and we can use the kernels. A very native way of thinking is zero waste. What's the sauce? This is a guajillo chili. Look how beautiful. It's moist, it's steamed.
I didn't just want to attend an event, eat the food, and move on. I wanted to know more about the people behind that food and their history. So Walter was kind enough to invite us to the Navajo Nation, where he grew up. So we packed our bags and said goodbye to the hotel. After a long drive, we ended up in a place called Canyon de Chelly. That is phenomenally beautiful. Canyon de Chelly is a sacred site for the Navajo, especially because of the towering spider rock. Legend has it, the rock was home to Spider Woman, who taught the Navajo the art of weaving. But the canyon's walls are also etched with a tragic story of hurt and pain. This land and your connection to it. What happened here 150 years ago?
People took the long walk.
In the 1860s, thousands of Navajos and some Apaches were violently removed from their lands. They were forced to march to what was essentially a concentration camp in southeastern New Mexico.
I believe they called it the New Mexico Trail of Tears. Everything was taken away from us.
Hundreds of Navajo died during the long walk. They were starved and raped, and shot if they couldn't keep up. That included pregnant women and the elderly. And the story at Canyon de Chelly, a Navajo stronghold, was particularly horrifying. The American military carried out a scorched earth campaign. They slaughtered the Navajo's sheep, burned their crops, and starved them until they surrendered.
When they seen that their crops, their animals being destroyed, taking that long walk without food and water, when that happened, when everything's taken away from you, it shatters everyone, you know?
The Navajo eventually arrived at the camp, but the land wasn't fit for farming, and hunting was difficult there. They had no choice but to abandon their ancestral foods and survive off of nutritionally poor U.S. military food rations. As a result, over 2,000 of them died of disease and starvation. Eventually, the U.S. government released those that survived, But like other tribes, they were then confined to a reservation, which has today become the Navajo Nation. These forced removals of Native people were guided by a racist ideology known as manifest destiny, that somehow this land belonged to white settlers, and only white settlers, through some sort of divine order.
Even to this day, some of the old people talk about what happened and how we're going to carry on our traditional ways that we used to have.
So much of Native culture was passed down by word of mouth. But being robbed of their land, their way of life, being killed and forced onto reservations, that led to the loss of a lot of cultural traditions, including culinary ones. The repercussions of that brutal colonial past are apparent as soon as you drive onto the reservation. Not only is there a severe lack of native restaurants here, there's, well, a severe lack of everything food-related. The Navajo Nation is a food desert. There are only about 10 grocery stores in the entire area of nearly 28,000 square miles. And 80% of the foods in those stores have little to no nutritional value. Driving around the reservation, it's hard to find much else besides fast food. Native people's traditional diets have been decimated by years of colonization, and this has led to extremely high rates of obesity and diabetes. Today, Native Americans are twice as likely to get diabetes as someone who's white. And that's why, for Walter, helping others from his community reconnect with their culinary traditions is so important.
If you don't pass it, it's going to go away. They always tell us, hang on to your root, hang on to what you have. Little that I can, always pass it down to whoever that wants to learn, you know.
And you're keeping it alive yourself.
Oh yeah.
Before we left the Navajo Nation, Walter taught me how to cook this incredible dish of lamb chops in a chili honey glaze.